people, that seeing more, understanding more, would bring you closer to others. But it doesn't. Instead, it separates you. You walk into a room and everyone is laughing at something you don't find funny, talking about things that seem trivial, surface level, safe. And you smile, you nod, you play along, but inside you're somewhere else entirely. You're thinking about the conversation beneath the conversation, the patterns no one mentions, the questions no one's asking, and suddenly you realize you're alone. Not physically, but in every way that matters. This is the hidden cost of intelligence. The price nobody tells you about. The isolation that comes, not from being different, but from seeing differently. Let me tell you something about intelligent people. Something that might explain why you feel the way you do. Intelligence isn't just about knowing more, it's about perceiving more. Connecting dots that others don't see, following thoughts to their logical conclusions, even when those conclusions are uncomfortable. And here's the problem. Most people don't want to go there. They don't want to question the game. They want to play it. They don't want to examine the mask. They want to wear it. They don't want to wonder if the emperor has clothes. They want to complement the fabric. But you can't help it. You see the threads hanging loose. You notice the inconsistencies, the contradictions, the unspoken agreements everyone pretends are absolute truths. And when you point them out, even gently, even playfully, people get uncomfortable. Not because you're wrong, but because you're right. And being right about things people don't want to examine makes you dangerous. So they distance themselves. Not consciously, perhaps, not maliciously, but they do. They stop inviting you to things. They keep conversations shallow around you. They call you intense or overthinking or too serious. And you learn to keep your thoughts to yourself. You learn to dumb it down, to speak in half-truths, to laugh at jokes you don't find funny, to nod along with opinions you don't share. You learn to hide, because full honesty, you've discovered, is social suicide. Authentic expression is loneliness in motion. Being truly yourself means being truly alone. And so intelligent people find themselves in this strange position, surrounded by others, but profoundly isolated, speaking, but never really heard, present, but not quite there. It's not that you think you're better than anyone. That's not it at all. In fact, you'd give anything to just fit in, to care about the things they care about, to find meaning in the conversations they have. But you can't. You've seen too much, thought too deeply, gone too far down the rabbit hole to come back and pretend the surface is all there is. This is what people don't understand about intelligence. It's not a gift you can put down. It's not a switch you can turn off. It's a lens you see through permanently. You can't unsee patterns once you've seen them. You can't unknow things once you know them. You can't go back to simple answers once you've understood the complexity. And most people, they're still living in the simple answers, the clean narratives, the comfortable illusions. They believe what they're told to believe. They want what they're told to want. They fear what they're told to fear, not because they're stupid, but because it's easier, safer, less lonely. But you can't do that anymore. And that's why you're alone. Now, here's where it gets interesting. This loneliness you feel, this isolation, it comes in stages. And understanding these stages might help you realize you're not broken. You're just awake in a sleeping world. The first stage is confusion. You're young, perhaps, or newly aware, and you start noticing things don't add up. The adults are saying one thing but doing another. Society claims to value truth but punishes honesty. People preach kindness but practice cruelty when no one's watching. And you think, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe everyone else understands something I don't. So you try harder. You study people. You observe. You analyze. You attempt to figure out the rules of the game everyone else seems to know instinctively. So you try harder. You study people. You observe. You analyze. You attempt to figure out the rules of the game everyone else seems to know instinctively. But the more you understand, the less it makes sense. The rules are arbitrary, the game is rigged, and everyone's pretending not to notice. That's when you enter the second stage, frustration. You try to explain what you see. You point out the contradictions. You ask the questions that expose the illusions. You speak the truths everyone's thinking but no one's saying. And you're met with resistance, denial, hostility, even. People tell you you're overthinking, being negative, ruining the mood, making things complicated. And you realize they don't want to know. They're not curious. They're not seeking truth. They're seeking comfort. And your intelligence, your honesty, your clarity, it threatens that comfort. So you stop sharing. You stop trying to connect. You retreat inward, which brings you to the third stage. Acceptance. You accept that most people will never understand you, that your thoughts are too complex, too nuanced, too uncomfortable for casual conversation, that your depth will always be mistaken for darkness, your silence for arrogance, your solitude for superiority. You accept that you will spend most of your life feeling alone, not because there's something wrong with you, but because there's something different about how you process the world. And strangely, this acceptance brings a kind of peace. Not happiness, perhaps, but peace. You stop expecting others to meet you where you are. You stop trying to translate yourself into simpler terms. You stop performing normalcy for an audience that will never applaud. You simply are alone, yes, but authentic, isolated, perhaps, but integrated, lonely, certainly, but no longer lying. And here's what's beautiful about this stage. This is where you start finding your people. Not many of them, not often, but occasionally you meet someone who speaks your language, who sees what you see, who doesn't need you to explain because they already understand. These connections are rare, but they're real. And one real connection, you discover, is worth 1,000 shallow ones. This is the paradox of intelligent loneliness. The very thing that isolates you from the masses connects you to the few who matter. But let me tell you something else about this loneliness, something that might shift how you see it entirely. What if the loneliness you feel isn't a bug, but a feature? What if your intelligence hasn't cursed you with isolation, but freed you from illusion? Think about it. Most people aren't connected. They're just clustered, huddled together for warmth, yes, but not truly seeing each other, not truly known. They're performing connection, playing the game of relationship, following the script of friendship, but beneath it all, they're just as alone as you are. They're just better at pretending they're not. You, on the other hand, you've stopped pretending. You've admitted the truth. You are alone. We all are, fundamentally. Born alone, die alone, and in between, we have these brief moments of recognition. These fleeting instances where another consciousness touches ours, and we feel, for a moment, less singular. But intelligent people, they see this clearly. They don't need the illusion of constant connection to feel okay. They don't need the noise of endless socializing to drown out the silence of existence. They can sit with themselves, think with themselves, be with themselves, and find that it's enough. This is what people misunderstand about solitude. They think it's the absence of connection, but it's not. It's the presence of self. And for intelligent people, the self is endlessly interesting. You can spend hours in your own mind and never be bored, exploring ideas, following thoughts, building worlds of possibility, tearing them down, rebuilding them differently. Your intelligence gives you this gift, the ability to be alone without being lonely, to be in solitude without suffering. But society, it doesn't celebrate this. It pathologizes it. It calls you antisocial, isolated, depressed. It assumes something is wrong with you because you're not constantly seeking external validation and stimulation. But nothing is wrong with you. You're just operating on a different frequency. And yes, that frequency is less crowded. Yes, fewer people can hear it. But the ones who can, oh, the ones who can hear it truly hear you. Now, I want to address something important. The question you're probably asking yourself, is it worth it? Is intelligence worth the loneliness it brings? Would you trade your awareness for belonging, your clarity for comfort, your truth for togetherness? And here's what I'll tell you. You can't trade it. That's the thing. You can't unknow what you know. You can't unsee what you see. You can't dumb yourself down permanently, no matter how hard you try. You can pretend, yes. You can perform. You can code switch and mask and play small. But inside, you'll still be you, still thinking those thoughts, still seeing those patterns, still aware, and that internal dishonesty, that self-betrayal, it's far lonelier than any external isolation. Because when you abandon yourself to fit in with others, you lose the only companion you're guaranteed to have for your entire life, yourself. So, no, you can't trade your intelligence for belonging. But you can change your relationship with it. You can stop seeing your intelligence as a curse. Stop framing your loneliness as punishment. Stop believing something is wrong with you because you don't fit into a world that was never designed for people who think like you. Instead, you can see it for what it is. A different way of being. A different experience of life. Not better, not worse, just different. And different, it's always lonely. Always has been, always will be. The artist is lonely in a world of bankers. The mystic is lonely in a world of materialists. The philosopher is lonely in a world of pragmatists. And the intelligent person, they're lonely in a world that values agreement over truth. But here's the secret. Here's what changes everything. That loneliness, that isolation you feel, it's not keeping you from life. It is life. It's the human condition, laid bare. It's existence without the comforting lies we tell ourselves. Most people spend their entire lives running from this loneliness, filling every moment with noise, with people, with distraction. Anything to avoid feeling it, anything to avoid facing it. But you can't run from it. Your intelligence won't let you. It strips away the distractions. It sees through the noise. It recognizes the loneliness as fundamental. And once you stop running from it, once you turn and face it directly, something remarkable happens. It transforms. The loneliness doesn't disappear, but it changes texture. It becomes less like a wound and more like a space. A vast, open space where you can finally breathe. Because when you're no longer afraid of being alone, you're no longer afraid of anything. When you're no longer desperate for connection, you're free to connect authentically When you're no longer performing for acceptance, you're available for recognition. This is the gift hidden inside the curse, the freedom hidden inside the isolation, the strength hidden inside the loneliness. Intelligent people, when they embrace their solitude rather than resist it, they become dangerous in the most beautiful way. Dangerous to systems that rely on conformity. Dangerous to narratives that depend on unquestioning belief. Dangerous to illusions that require collective agreement, because they're no longer playing the game. They're no longer pretending. They're no longer available for manipulation through the fear of exclusion. They're alone, yes, but they're free. And that freedom, that sovereignty of self, it's threatening to a world built on dependency and herd mentality. So yes, intelligent people are always alone. But perhaps that's not the tragedy we think it is. Perhaps it's the very thing that allows them to see clearly, to think independently, to exist authentically. Perhaps the loneliness isn't what's wrong with them. Perhaps the loneliness is what's right. The world needs people who can stand alone, who can think for themselves, who can see through the collective delusions and speak uncomfortable truths. The world needs people who aren't so desperate for belonging that they'll believe anything, support anything, become anything, just to fit in. The world needs intelligent people, even if it doesn't always appreciate them, even if it doesn't always understand them, even if it leaves them feeling alone. So if you're one of these people, if you've felt this loneliness, let me say this to you. You're not broken. You're not defective. You're not too much or too intense or too anything. You're awake in a sleeping world. And yes, that's lonely. But it's also necessary. It's also valuable. It's also exactly what you're meant to be. The loneliness you feel isn't a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're doing something right. You're being true to yourself in a world that rewards falsehood. You're thinking for yourself in a world that demands conformity. You're standing alone in a world that insists on crowds. And maybe, just maybe, that's not a curse at all. Maybe it's the most profound gift you could ever receive. The gift of seeing truly, thinking clearly, being authentically, even if it means being alone, especially if it means being alone. Because in the end,